Welcome to News with a View. Whoops. Hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is April 3rd, 2026, and this is episode 45. Now, this is a conservative leaning podcast. I do take in the arguments of both sides and will slant it towards a conservative viewpoint if it is sensible. I do question Republicans. I do question Democrats. It's the best approach to go. Look at both sides of the story. Use our Constitution. Use our laws and amendments. And when there are no laws or amendments and legislation is being developed to create a law, then look at that law and see if it makes sense. Is it an overreach? Is it going to affect other rights that we have? So it's just not a matter of making laws. It's how they're implemented, how they are and written. So today we're going to be looking at the Supreme Court, mainly just speak about Justice Jackson and her logic going on with birthrights. We're going to discuss comments that were made in a podcast by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He is the senator from Rhode Island. We're going to look at crime in Chicago. We're going to look at some ICE data out of New York, mainly New York City. And we're going to speak briefly about the crime that's happening and the punishment meted out to illegal criminals, murderers in Fairfax County, Virginia. And it goes really down to, what I was we'll talk about is overall crime in a lot of cities. So let's get going. Start this. Welcome to my new viewers and subscribers. If you like this commentary, please subscribe. It does help. This is not a monetized channel, but it helps me with other things inside of these social media platforms. The new members, again, thank you, people that like this, like it. Leave comments. Comments are very, very important. Just as important as being a subscriber. And a comment could be, hey, I think you're full of it, or yeah, you're on here, or I have a question, you said this. That is fine. Comments are good. Back and forth dialogue. I answer all my comments. Even Bob in New York's with his ranting comments. But I do appreciate it. So please, comments. And also let me know where you're watching from. Just the state. That's all. That's all I'm asking. All right. So Supreme Court Justice Jackson kind of spins into the darkness, as I call it, with her comment on allegiance and your allegiance to a country. And her comment was, if I steal a wallet in Japan, I'm subject to Japanese laws. In a sense, it's an allegiance. No, it's not an allegiance. It was unbelievable that she would even use that type of logic, because It's not an allegiance. You don't take an allegiance to laws. You follow the laws. And in Japan, if you steal, you have to abide by their laws. If you're in the United States, if you steal, you have to abide by their laws. You don't take an allegiance to that law, you follow that law. Her idea that she was spinning is that the people in this country take an allegiance. They take no allegiance. And if you're here illegally, and really what the government and ICE is looking for are those people that have no documented reasons to be here. They're not even here on a visitor, a vacation that they've extended, or a school, visa that, is 12 years old. But, they knew who they were. These are people that are not here on the books anywhere. They don't show up anywhere as coming through one of our immigration centers and making their presence known. So there is no allegiance. And this gets into further on why my feeling is that just being born here doesn't give you citizenship in today's world. After slavery and after the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment was made because the 13th Amendment failed to address the issue of slavery. When people came over in the past, in the oldie days, domicile became your allegiance, and you moved here, you built a home, you were here, and this goes into the late 1800s and even parts of the early 1900s. And then immigration rules and regulations, of course, started to accelerate, and different laws and things came into existence. So when you try to compare today to 1794, no, you can't, because that happened then and this is happening now. So the fact of inside where it says the jurisdiction of and the sovereignty, when you come into the United States, you give a reason why you're coming into the United States. I'd like to become a citizen. I'd like to apply for immigration. I'm being persecuted, whatever the reasons are. If the immigration people at that time go, you're here, you got to, come to this hearing, you got to do this and that, but we know you're here. These aren't the people, in essence, that ICE or anyone else is talking about. We're talking about people that we have no idea who are here, yet they have children here. And automatically they get citizenship, which is, I feel is not true unless the parents make some type of declaration to immigration officials of their intent to stay here and announce that they're here. Now, they can't do that because they entered illegally, and that automatically stops you from doing that. And that is the problem. You're taking a illegal action, coming into the United States unannounced and unverified, or just basically unannounced and without authorization, makes you here illegally. How can you make an illegal act legal. And I'll use something as simple in logic as I steal $100 million and no one catches me, and I put it into certificates of deposit at 4%. And for 5 years, I collect, $20 million. And I get caught. And they turn around and they go, well, we confiscate everything. Well, no. You can confiscate the $100 million that I stole. I admit I stole that. But the other $20 million is mine. No, the law says no. The act of a criminal activity, you can't profit by that. Well, using that logic, since she used a criminal activity, would fall under the same thing, with the results being you couldn't claim that money, just like you couldn't claim citizenship. You can't do it. And that is how simple this is. The hard part is peeling back the onion. Where do you start? Because there's plenty of people here that were here illegally. And now, they're not here. You have family. So you have to put some type of date on that. And if you're going to make that back, and then you have to say, well, those people are still here illegally, and so the parents have to go. Now, if the parents want to take their children with them, when their children turn of legal age, they can come back here as a citizen. I'm for that if this is what gets reversed. But if they are not citizens, if it's shown that these people are not citizens from a certain date on, then they got to go, and they go with their parents. And if the parents' country that they left, and to leave that country they left illegally, that's not our problem. If they're stateless, not our problem. We can't make it our problem. Because then why have an immigration policy at all then? Why even do it? Why have it? And this is the issue. And this goes further than this too. And that's not what the 14th Amendment was drafted for and ratified about. It was claiming that the slaves were brought over here under bondage. They never, ever gave up their rights to wherever they came from. Now, there might not have been anything like that in Africa at the time, and I'm sure there wasn't. But they couldn't come here and then claim sovereignty here because they were considered as property. So that had to be addressed. The 13th Amendment, of course, abolished slavery, but it did not answer the question of, are they citizens? with a full everything. Where they were you couldn't be 2/3 or 99.9. You're either 100 or you're not. You're either 100% citizen or you're not a citizen. It's that digital. So the 14th Amendment addressed that, yes, under the 13th Amendment, yes, slaves were citizens, but it never addressed the children of slaves that were lost in the mix. Those children weren't brought over here in bondage. They were born here and then taken from their parents, most of them, and then sold off inside as property. And so it wasn't that they couldn't denounce their sovereignty towards whoever or announce their sovereignty because, again, they were property. And you had to look at it if a cow had a calf, that wasn't up to the next door neighbor to come over and, well, it's mine now. You own the cow, but now the calf, no, the calf became your property too. That farmer's property. So these legal questions needed to be answered. And answered in a way that was directed towards a group of people. And that is where they said anyone born in the United States became a citizen. But it wasn't meant for coming in here illegally, for just to have a child here and thus creating birthrights. That was not the intent. And I think that is where everything's going to hinge upon. Because we just don't have the problem with illegals coming in here. We had mothers visiting on their 8.5 months of pregnancy, have a baby, and then go back to where their country was, but their child is now a citizen. And this can have major complications and implications down the road. When those children become 18, they're allowed to vote. Do you know how many United States citizens, children, are living in China today? It's over 1 million. They've never returned to the United States. They do not speak English. They have never... they're in China, they have to follow all the Chinese rules, but they're theoretically U.S. citizens. So when it comes for voting, what would stop the People's Republic of China telling all these people, this is who you're going to vote for in mail-in ballots? And you could see why mail-in ballots become an issue. And that's why even back then they said no mail-in ballots. Back in the day, mail-in balloting only became an issue during the Civil War. You had to go to your polling location and vote in person. So these birthright issues that we're speaking about go far beyond that of illegals. It goes beyond people that came here and using America as a birthing nation. Now, if I'm not a citizen of China and my wife is over there and she has a baby, they don't become a Chinese citizen. They just say you were in China when you had your baby, you got to pay for it, boom, 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 congratulations, and out you go. There's no tie. So these are the issues with birthrights. It goes beyond those of being an illegal. That's just one aspect of it. And that's why the president, wanted to change how mail-in balloting, works. Which I don't think he can do that. I think that the Constitution does not allow for the president to intervene with that. Congress certainly can intervene with that, but not the president. I know that's the executive branch, but states don't fall under the executive branch. So I don't hold up much hope, and I don't agree with it. The president should not have any authority over state elections or elections that happen in any state, be it federal, be it state. Our founders and drafters were very explicit, and that's why we have a 10th Amendment too, in the overreach of the federal government. So, again, being a federalist, there are rules for that. But I don't think the president can do what he just said in an executive order. I think that's going to get kiboshed. So, all right. 22 minutes of your life has been consumed by me. And it continues. All right, I'm going to speak about Senator Whitehouse. He's the senator from Rhode Island. He was their state attorney general. He was a lot of things. He tried to be governor, didn't work. And in his podcast the other day, he said there is a cover-up afoot, and that White House exposes Trump, Epstein, and Russian links, says Senator Sheldon. White House lays out detailed case tying Donald Trump's deference to Vladimir Putin to Jeffrey Epstein's suspected Russian-linked blackmail network. There's nothing behind it. It's all in this guy's head. Now, it's all right if there's people like myself or any other person out there in a non-governmental role to go out there and go, I think this is what I think. Look at this, That's fine. That's free speech, and you can do that. And of course, Senator Whitehouse is extended those same free speech. Let me make that perfectly clear too. But I find it terribly unethical of any politician getting up there and making these claims with it being baseless. Now, you could scream out, but John, Trump does that every day. And I would have to say, yes, he does. But when he goes and says it, there is factuality behind it. Now, you might not like what he says, and I can certainly understand that. And when he says, I could prove what I'm saying, but I can't get that state to release their information, because I can't prove that there was a crime because I can't get that information. And in a sense, he's true, and it's skewed logic in the legal sense of the word. I'm not a lawyer. I'm nothing like that. But normally, for you to be able to get information that normally is not available to you or the public, you have to have a legitimate reason. And the reason behind that legitimate reason would be evidence. Now, when you don't have evidence, then you go to a grand jury and you present, this is what we think is happening here, and we just need to look a little bit further, but we're not allowed. But this is why we're asking you for that reason to go a little bit further. And you've heard the adage that a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich because it really is a one-way system. It's very rare that a person could go in there and kind of challenge what's going on, because a lawyer is not allowed to be with you or to advise you as you go forward with it. It's really strange and weird. And grand jury testimony is 99.999% sealed. That's it. No one can look at it. So they're allowed. The government is allowed to go fishing and see what they can dig up, just on a very strong hunch. So if the president doesn't have everything lined up right, you can't go forward. And if he continues to go try to do this and keeps throwing stuff and demanding grand juries and things of that such, it becomes burdensome to the court. And the court will go, no, we're not going to have a grand jury with it. We need proof. We need absolute evidence before we can go any further here. Not, this is what was done to me, this is what I feel they were doing. You can't do that. So, and you have Whitehouse up there saying all these things, and he can do it. But a person in his position and power shouldn't be doing that. He can. And then you can have people like me go and say, that Whitehouse is an utter failure as a lawyer. He has lost major cases in his state. One was against, I think, Sherwin-Williams or whatever entity that had owned over lead paint. And he should have known that he couldn't win that case because it was already law out there that said it's not Sherwin-Williams' problem to clean up the mess of lead paint. It's the homeowners. And that was already vetted and done, and he didn't care. He's really he's on the budget committee and stuff. He's a lousy senator. And if you've heard him speak and stuff, I mean, he's the biggest crybaby. You want to look at him, he's like a child crying about stuff. And now he is a huge, huge climate person. And he's a huge, always accusing people of getting dark money. And, just stuff and with no proof. With no proof of it. And he is really one of the senators that are up there and that have the TDS, and I hope he seeks help for it in the future. Because if you've heard him speak, you can tell that this is those eyes are spinning around crazy eyes. And you're like, okay, yeah, yeah. And as you back away and you go, I'm watching everything that this guy does. I'm not turning my back on this guy. So that's my rant today about Whitehouse, who I have picked on before. I just don't like the guy. The mayor of Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson, his support for criminals. There's no doubt of his support of criminals. His support of illegal criminals who commit criminal acts is well known and well documented. And he continues to make Chicago a terrible place to live in, or to work in, or to have a business, or thinking of going to. He protects and enables criminals. Shootings in Chicago this past February were up 13% compared to February of 2025. March saw a 15% rise compared to March 2025. The increase in homicides is even greater, with an 18% increase this February compared to last year, and a 16% increase this March. The crime rate in Chicago and murder rate in Chicago is worse than that was of St. Louis, East St. Louis. Probably the only other city that compares to that murder rate would be Los Angeles, but Los Angeles is, of course, huge compared to the size of Chicago. But in the not in the percentage, but of the amount of crime, not the percentages, because if you understand math, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't understand that math, look it up. It's easy enough to do. Over the first 90 days of this year in Chicago, 99 homicides. 99. "99 mothers that lost a child. Countless fathers. Who knows? But 99 people have been murdered. And less than 2% of those murders were committed by non-whites. I mean, they were committed by non-blacks. So this isn't white people going into Chicago and killing black people. This is black on black crime. Illegals murdering people. And illegals don't care if they're killing a white person or a black person. They do not care. Yet, they fight and go, we don't need any federal help. We don't need any state help in this. The governor, Pritzker, the Putz, he's useless. And the amount of federal aid pouring into Chicago is tremendous, not helping anyone but people's pockets. So, You keep on supporting these Democrats in defunding the police and electing Democrats, and those statistics could come to a town or city near you. And you could say, but John, there's murders in places that are red. Yes, they are, and they're dealt with. And those people are locked away. And in some of those states, eventually executed for their crimes. I'm not a huge advocate of the death penalty. Except, when there is absolutely no doubt. You walk in and the guy's, oh, hi, fellas, stabby, stabby, or shooty, shooty, or, yeah, there's no question on this person's guilt. When there are questions of DNA, if there's questions on circumstances, then I would err that a life sentence. And then if that person proves themselves to be innocent down the road, if they can prove it, it's a long shot. Doesn't happen often, but enough to say that if that guy was executed, there was no fixing that mistake or challenge. I get it. Everyone's innocent, that's in jail. I didn't do it. I get it. I get it. All right. We're into 37 minutes here. There's a project called the Deportation Data Project. And they want you to think that ICE, those horrible, are not going after the worst of the worst, but are arresting just illegals. And over 800 illegals were arrested in New York City from August 25 to March 26. That is classified collateral arrests, meaning ICE detains 5 people because they know that, in a car, because they know that one person in the back seat they're looking for, he's a wanted felon. He's on our list, and we're going to get him. We that's him. But while they're going through everyone in the car, which is they're allowed to do, they find 2 people that are illegals. Well, we were looking for this guy who was really bad, but then we found these 2 illegals that are not on our list, but we don't know who they are, and they admit that they're here illegally or whatever they're doing. They can't prove they're citizens. We arrest them too. And that's called a collateral arrest. So in New York City, in that time, there were 800, I think it was actually 811 collateral arrests from August 25th to March 10th when the data was collected. 800. That's just collateral. Not talking about all the other people that they got. And, they said that this wasn't right. because the agency said it was going after the worst of the worst. Well, if you're capturing a criminal, the police, and they find another criminal, they go, well, we weren't looking for you, so take off. They don't do that. They go, looky here. It was our lucky day, 2 for 1. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you went into an establishment and you caught the one guy, he's a convicted felon, or he did this, or, boom, and then you go, hey, we get to ask all of you. Yeah, it sucks. It's not illegal. There are rules that ICE has to follow. They can't go into what would be described as a considered private area. They can't just. The question is, can they go into a person's house, force their way into a home? Yeah, I don't think they can do that. Even though they say they can't, I don't think they can do that under the Fourth Amendment that they are covered under, where you do have a perception of privacy and you can't exercise, and the Sixth Amendment comes in, and a whole bunch of other things. But if I were to stop you on the street and you were with a group of people and I single one guy out and the people, oh, hey, fellas, this is just so we can say who witnessed this. You saw us. We didn't beat him. We didn't shoot him. So we'd like to get your names here. I'm not going to ask you to sign anything. We just want your names. All right. Boom, boom. Can I just see some ID on that? Well, that's how it starts. The idea of catching collateral criminals is nothing new. But opponents of ICE try to manipulate this data to peddle a false narrative that DSH is not targeting the worst of the worst. And that they're actually just going after everyone, which ICE has said we're after the worst of the worst of illegals and illegals. That's our job. So the media tries to perceive it and use it as a means to go, see, they're not going after the worst of the worst. They're lying. No, it's just that if we run across the criminal, we arrest them. Just as if they saw someone, a citizen, murdering another citizen or hurting another citizen, they could go in and stop that and arrest them and then hand them over to the local authorities. You understand they can do that too, right? Does not have to be in their jurisdiction because federal agents have no jurisdiction inside the United States or its territories. Just so you know. So, I was pointing out that this is a falsehood used in the media to paint ICE as bad people. Not that the criminals were bad people. And they go, well, just being here illegally doesn't make you a bad person. I agree with that. But it makes them a criminal. And it seems that the Democrats have been coddling criminals and more interested in protecting criminals than they are protecting citizens. And that can't be denied because that's a fact. Ask Schumer. He'll tell you. I'm not interested in TSA getting paid. I'm not interested in people being out of work. I'm interested in protecting illegals. Jeffries. Same thing. Pelosi. You have Cory Booker, who says that the Democrats have failed and they need new leadership. No, sir. You're right that Democrats have failed. But you need to get some backbone like John Fetterman and other Democrats who go, no, right is right, wrong is wrong. You know, this is the law. We're on the side of the law. Hey, let's all get around and change it. If we're not happy with it, let's all sit down and pound out a new law. But no, that's not what the Democrats want. The Democrats only care about the quality of life, the liberty and the freedom of people that should not be here. That does not enhance my liberty and freedom because I have those rights. But what it does do is degrade my safety. And if you allow those people a chance to vote that have nothing in the game, they're not following the rules to begin with, that whole logic escapes me. Now in Virginia, in the county of Fairfax, and I was going to look it up, but I didn't because it was the last thing I saw and I added it. There have been 3 murders done, perpetrated by illegals, where the prosecutor has seen that they've gotten very light sentences. 5 years for murder. And these are illegals who have killed citizens. And this is happening all over blue states. And for years, none of this has been making news because they kept it out of it, you know. We got them off the street, you know. And in the last case, and you look it up, in Fairfax County, Virginia, the police said, well, we had no witnesses because everyone was afraid to come forward against these 2 individuals. But we got them, and they admitted to it. And part of the deal for them admitting to it was we'd only give them 5 years because everyone else was afraid of them. And those everyone else's were illegals. And these people, illegals, had been caught before. But were never detained to be given to ICE. So they got to commit and kill people, commit murder and crimes, and ended up murdering someone. And this is the mindset of the Democrats. They don't care about people. They have an agenda. And the agenda is to degrade the American way of life through LGBT laws that allow craziness in our schools, to allow children to seek medical surgeries without the approval of a parent. I don't see how anyone in their right mind could agree with this, could sit back and go, well, no, this is a good thing because it protects all of it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't protect all of us. It protects a certain class of people. The Democrats are not showing any backbone. They are not showing anything but contempt for our way of life. And they're not believing what the polls are saying. You have these Democrats, we're going to take the 2026, yeah, 2028, yeah. And pollsters are telling them, look at this data. You're not on track here. You're not on track over here. These people are not satisfied with you. And they don't care because they drank the Kool-Aid. They drank their own Kool-Aid. They wanted us to drink it in 2024, and we said, no, thank you. No, thank you. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. And yet, they're mixing it up and pouring it out to everyone. Yeah, Trump bad. Trump orange. Let's make fun of his color. Let's make fun of his hair. Let's do this. We'll judge him on his hair. We'll judge him on his weight. We'll judge him on his color. And when someone does it to one of theirs, you're a racist. You are a racist. But when they do it, they're not racists at all. Oh, no, we're using facts. Look at his hair. If you're a Democrat out there, and you're a moderate Democrat, you got to think twice about your party. Just like I understand I'm MAGA and I'm not MAGA. They're going to look beyond all the things of the Republicans and go, I'm voting red. You have your liberal progressives out there that will go in there, I'm just going to vote blue. I get it. But it's the moderates in either party that are going to decide. And do you want a continuation of the nonsense that was going on under Biden and under Obama? And I can understand people going, oh my God, Trump, yeah. When a car is going 90 miles an hour and you slow it down a little bit, you're not getting too jostled around. But when the car is going 90 miles an hour and you jam the brakes on it, yeah, because our country was going 90 miles an hour into a brick wall and Trump put the brakes on. And of course you're going to feel it. And those brakes are applied because the Democrats didn't care if they hit a wall. They were in a bus and they go, we'll get out the next corner, and everyone else, well, sorry. Sucks to be you. I'm getting off over here. And that's what's going on. All right, everyone. It's been 55 minutes. I didn't want it to go this long. I'm going to do a very small edit job on this, not get into too much stuff. I might put stuff at the end where I put in people's names in Virginia that I was speaking about. Everything else is all pretty good. Might be some data numbers, but it's not going to be page after page after page or, 50 edits in here with putting stuff in. I don't have the energy. I've been sick for the last 2 weeks. It's been bad. And I'm just starting to feel somewhat better, which is always a bad thing to say because then I take 5 steps backwards. But if I'm able to, I'll do a show. I want to thank everyone again who has stuck with me, who have subscribed. I like doing the shorts. My shorts get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of views. But not so much my shows. I'd like you to sit by, I'd like you to look at one of them. And then just tell me what you think I'm doing wrong or what you think I'm doing right. And I've got some people go, hey, you were right on, then you go off on a tangent or you go off over here. You're easily swayed away from the subject line. Make yourself up a show subject line and don't deviate by it. Yeah, I try it. It still doesn't work, But I appreciate when people do leave suggestions. And just leave your suggestions and comments. All right. Please think of giving to a charity. And make it a charity of your choice. You go out and find the charity. Do your research and give. If you're not comfortable in doing that, and I can understand your reasons why you would not be comfortable with it, think about giving to a local food bank. Food is always a good thing for them. A monetary donation helps them immediately answer a crisis right in front of them that day. And you could also find out if they collect clothes or anything else that people might need. And remember, food is not just the only thing they need. They need toothbrushes, they need hairbrushes, they need deodorant, they need women's hygiene, they need toilet paper, they need all these things. And you can do that without saying to yourself, well, these people put themselves into that situation. That's their problem. Well, a child did not put themselves into that situation. And you could be helping an adult that should be doing the right thing, but they're not. But then you're also helping a child that has no say in it. And they're just caught in the stream going down. So think about it that way. Say a prayer. Prayer does work no matter what a Democrat might tell you. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to have this show up in about an hour and a half. Well, 2 hours. It takes me an hour to edit it and then an hour to render it. I appreciate it all. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all the comments. Even Bob in New York. All right. Everyone, be safe, be well as I fade to black.